How are you today?
I am doing good. I am in the middle of cooking, but this is a adventurous, spontaneous evening that you have been let in on.
Oh, wonderful. We always like an adventure. Usually whenever I'm signing like birthday cards and everything like that, I always say, may this year be nothing but the best kind of adventures. Usually that sounds better in my head than it does in real life, but you never know. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for taking part of this chaotic and slightly insane journey that I'm having here. How about you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and the process.
Okay, so I'm Christin, and my last name is Vessel. I am 45, and pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm ex-military, and I have spent most of my early adult years as a planner and strategist and analyst. And I'm pretty good at it. And I will forever have a secret joke with a friend because of that. So, at any rate,
that's good. Secret inside jokes are the best. They're the best kind of joke, because if you're laughing with one other person and nobody else understands, it just seems to make it all the funnier. Yeah. So ex-military or former military. So tell us a little bit about that, shall you? Will you?
Well, 6 years of active duty Army and 6 months of Navy. That sounds crazy, but apparently it's easier to be in the Army than it is to be in the Navy. I had a rapid heartbeat, and so the Navy, after 6 months, decided to give me walking papers.
Oh, goodness.
The Army will take anybody. So with the right paperwork, off and away I went. So
not surprising. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, so thus started 7 years of pure adventure.
And there we go again, adventures. Welcome, Jen. I wasn't sure if you were going to be joining us this evening. I know you have, things going on. So tell me, your journey into self-identification and discovering your gender identity, did that start later in life? Did it start earlier? Or, tell us when you first started experiencing the ideas that, maybe there was something a little different.
Well, there might have been some questions maybe around 10.
Okay.
10, maybe? I have someone I shall refer to as Supergirl here with me.
Okay.
Who's enjoying the evening, so I can be like, what was that game, Jeopardy? No, with a lifeline, where you call a lifeline?
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Okay. So, I'm kind of eyeballing her going, 10 or 11, because Supergirl has inside scoop on childhood.
Wow. Hey, Supergirl sounds like we might need to have a talk with her. So around 10. Now, how did that manifest? Did it, what were those signs, those symptoms that you were talking about?
Well, I never fit in with hardcore boy stuff. And when I say that, it's like football. No, I didn't want to play a bunch of football. No, I didn't want to throw baseball around. I wasn't into sports. If you handed me a computer and told me to code something or, go build a fort or something like that, I might have done a little of that. But as far as, I got along better with girls. I got into a lot of fights with guys over girls, but I think that there were questions there because I had more in common with the girls in my neighborhood, and that you can probably yeah. So there you have it. Supergirl says yeah.
We have confirmation. So now,
you're getting
this is nice.
This is Christin After Dark with no hair. So.
Oh well, this is me with my new hair. So we're having all kinds of fun. Okay, so you you had some signs. You were relating more to girls, and I completely understand that. That was very similar to my upbringing. I didn't find anything in common with the other guys. I didn't find any need for them in my life at all because I wasn't attracted to them. I didn't feel like one of them. So it just kind of was like, why are you here? Can you just stop existing now? Okay, so you're going into high school, and you're like, you're doing more planning and building related things. It sounds like with coding and construction, building forts and things like that. I totally understand.
Right.
Now, did you go into the military directly after high school, or did you go by way of college, or what? How did you end up finding yourself?
That's a funny story. Everyone used to skip school at my house.
Okay.
And to be a teacher, you'll appreciate this. So I was very much wanting to be the center of attention, and I always liked to be the life of the party, and I would do anything to be the life of the party, hardly. So I ended up getting in a lot of trouble, skipping school almost every day. I think I probably went to school my sophomore year, maybe 6 days out of the entire year. Exactly. So they expelled me. They came to my house. They knew where I was. They came to my house and gave me pink papers and expelled me. And then, so when they did, I was very happy with that. Like, that's great. I don't have to do.
You won the lottery.
That's
you don't
right.
have to go back to school.
My lucky day. So I didn't have to do that. And when I went into the Army, I had to get a GED, which of course I did. And the thing was I wasted high school because I was very smart at that point and basically threw it away. I'm having fun.
Okay, so we dropped the call. That happens. When she jumps back on, we'll pick up where we left off. I'm starting to wonder if maybe this live thing isn't such a good idea. Maybe we should be pre-recording these things. I don't know. We'll find out. So, yeah, and just going off of what Christin was just saying, maybe we didn't know exactly. We don't always know, but we do have signs. We do have symptoms of us being transgender. So there's not always a clear understanding. All right, I was just filling time for you, Christin. You go right back ahead with that story. So you wasted high school.
Yeah, I wasted high school.
So many people do.
And decided to go in the Army, and basically decided to do that, and that was going to be my career. And what the Army said I was going to do was definitely not what I learned how to do. It was something totally different. And then eventually I got to do the planning and all that stuff, and I did that for most of the time.
Okay.
But I traveled the world, and I got to see just about everywhere except Australia. So pretty neat. But I got to live around other cultures, and the trans community in Europe is much different in so many ways than here. So I was exposed to that, and had a chance to see what that was like. Although being in the Army at the time I could not fraternize that way.
Right.
It was not allowed.
So let me ask this real quick. So while you were in the Army, were you realizing that you were transgender at that point, or was it just still kind of like an inkling, or?
Yeah, I ended up having a couple of experiences in the Army because the Army soldiers live a wild life, and we throw alcohol into the mix, and things get creative, and wound up with a couple of lesbian girls that were living in my barracks, and then found out that there was more to that than met the eye. And before I knew it, there was a transgender woman in the room that had been snuck in. So we all had a bit of a show and tell.
Okay. As you do, I suppose. I mean, if alcohol's involved, people make poor decisions, like, grabbing some random stranger and bringing them back to their room. I don't know.
Right.
I'm sorry, I don't have much experience with this. I've never had quite such an adventurous life as that, but I don't know if I'm missing out, per se. So, what?
Probably not.
Without getting into detail, because we don't need details.
No.
What? What was the result of that evening? Did you find yourself asking more questions at that point, or did you kind of like a aha moment, or is it just a blip on the radar?
It was more or less a blip on the radar.
Okay.
I had a couple of experiences that happened after that. That happened when I was living back in Texas in the Army. My squad mates came to move my apartment and basically pack it all up. And some of my clothes and lingerie were there. And
Okay.
I could pass that off as girl stuff. That a date had left that over there, and that was theirs.
Okay.
It wasn't mine. Didn't have to be. So I could pass that off and not get caught.
Okay. So we kind of skated over the fact that you had women's clothing here. So let's
Right.
back up just a second and
Okay.
get to the fact that you had a secret. So how long had that been going on?
I had many secrets.
Well, okay. Well, this particular one, this is the only one I'm asking about right now. We'll get to some of the other ones. But,
Sorry.
you're okay. So how long had that been going on, that you had acquired, articles of women's clothing?
Since I had moved out and went to Texas, or not to Texas, but on active duty.
Okay, so that sounds like more than just an inkling to me. That sounds like a pretty big red waving flag saying, "Hey, look at this."
It was actually not, because
No, really.
I had too many people from the Army at my apartment and in.
Oh,
Can you go in? I think I did. Yes, it's over there. I'm going to change where I'm at. Hang on.
okay. Rebecca, seriously? Tequila? Oh my goodness. I can't have that conversation with you.
Tequila, let me guess. Tequila makes clothes come off. Or
Yeah,
something to that effect.
that's what she said.
Well, I can attest. I don't do well.
I wouldn't know. I'm sorry. I've never had that kind of experience. I guess and it's funny, as I grew up in Las Vegas, and you'd think that I would have a more adventurous story, but I don't. I'm, the closest I had, the closest I had that anything like that happened was very recently, and there'd been some alcohol involved, but not a lot, and then I found myself, kissing somebody that I'd never expected to be kissing. So that was pretty unexpected, but still, it wasn't the alcohol. It was just, she was really pretty. So, but yeah, okay. So now I'm just totally thrown off. The whole tequila makes your clothes fall off thing. That's going to stick with me. All right. So let's continue. So I'm curious about how, okay, so you're saying that, having the articles of women's clothing wasn't a sign so much. Continue with where you were. You're saying there were a lot of people that you were living with. Or...
My living situation was very fluid. So, Army life, having an apartment off base, you're pretty much a go-to place for every other soldier that wants to escape, having to manage their barracks room and make it pristine and
right. You make it nice, and then you sleep somewhere else.
Exactly. Don't sleep on your bed. Don't ever move a boot or a shoe or anything.
Yeah. Both of my brothers were in the Army, So I know all about it. I also know that, the crazy things that go on.
Right.
You believe it's a country. Okay.
I'm cooking while I do.
You're fine. No, by all means, cooking with Christin. This should be a TV show.
It actually is.
It is now, yes.
Well, there again, and I have it on a YouTube channel too. So.
Oh,
yeah.
Of course you do. Of course you do. I didn't even realize. I'm sorry. So we absolutely have to plug your YouTube channel then.
Okay. That might be scary, but all right.
Yeah, you'll get all the wrong kinds of attention after that.
I'm sure.
So, all right. So you're having this, and you're explaining to when your squad mates are helping you move, and you're explaining the clothing. What happened from there?
A panic attack.
Panic attack? I could imagine. Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, this could be the worst case scenario. I mean, of all the people to find it, you have these typically hyper-masculine guys who are in the military, and I know that's a stereotype, but it's a stereotype for a reason. There are a large number of very testosterone-fueled individuals. So how did that go over? Did they believe it? Did you move on from it?
They did believe it. It actually worked in a positive way because they didn't realize that I had been dating at all. And I had been, but it's not safe to advertise everything to everybody.
No.
So you're kind of selective about what you do with the people you eat, sleep, and breathe with.
Right.
Even though that sounds kinky, but I'm talking about in an army type of way.
No, and I get it because you're with these guys all day, every day. You're working with them. You're spending, you've got meal times with them. You're going back to the same place. You're sleeping in the same place. Absolutely. Right. Familiarity can breed contempt, and if you're sharing everything, they have all of that information on you. So I absolutely understand. It's kind of like It's kind of like working with a spouse. It can be great, but sometimes it can be a little trouble. Speaking from experience here, folks. Okay, so at this point, you have your clothes that have been discovered, and you've had the situation that worked out where now they think you're just this kind of player, and you got these women coming back to your place, leaving their clothes on the floor, all of that. That couldn't be bad for your reputation with them, I'm sure. But
no, not with them, but it wasn't a big help in other areas.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't doubt it. So at what point did you figure it out? What was it that, in the end gave you the understanding about yourself?
Well, that was more or less a not recent development, but I knew that I didn't feel totally like the masculine, manly man, even though I've always had that role, and I've always been in jobs that were hyper masculine. Like I have, and been put in situations that were insane.
Yeah.
And so I compensated by having those type of jobs, and if you tell something long enough, you tend to just fall into the role you're in and do it well. And I was really good at building walls and really good at keeping secrets, and the government liked that fact.
I would imagine so.
Yep. So there's a lot of intrigue and a lot of mystery, and things that we take for granted that I've done. And I mean, some of it you can talk about, and some of it you can't. And but all of it stacked up to help me to hide that little small niche in the brickwork. So when that was all said and done, and I got out of the Army, I didn't have an outlet. So it became a situation where, okay, what do I do with this? And then, there's self-doubt. Well, what does this mean for me? And, I come from an uber Christian background. My entire family is, I won't say they're ultra Christian, but some parts of them are. I grew up constantly going to church. My mother was devout. It just was not a conducive environment for any of that. And, you know, any type of mischief at all or out of the ordinary would have not been accepted. You know, she ran a tight ship, so you know that wasn't something that could ever happen in my house. That you know when I was a kid. As far as you know, after I got out of the military, that dynamic changed. I had a wife that was extremely sick. I didn't actually know if she was going to die because her kidneys were not in good shape.
Right.
She had a lot of problems, and at that time, I was working whatever job that I could find because I basically walked into the Army with a shirt on my back and walked out with that same shirt, literally, because they didn't at that time support troops in the way that they do now coming back from combat.
Right.
I just I struggled with a lot of stuff, and I didn't know that was you know a way to cope with stuff. I had problems coping with not only having PTSD, which I didn't know I had, but also trying to figure out who I was and how it would stack up in life without the hyper-masculinity, where, you know, now I'm in a competitive environment with a jillion other people that have more experience than me, and they, you know, they don't just have a specific skill. Situation where I wasn't able to have an outlet, and I went on what is now, I guess, GeoCities, or we used to be.
Okay.
And GeoCities had groups or whatever, I guess like chat groups. And people would post pictures and whatnot. And so I took pictures at that point. And that's where the cross-dressing stuff kind of happened.
Okay.
Pretty much ramped up, I guess you would say. And around 2003, my wife discovered those pictures. And that was, of course, the typical situation where wife finds something, wife goes crazy. And you know, of course, I was able to not really answer it, but I was able to bury it.
Okay.
Because I was really good at I don't even know how to say it without it sounding bad. So I was good at what the Army taught me to be good at, and so I made it a non-issue. And when I say that, part of being in planning and intelligence and whatnot is to make somebody think it's their idea. And
it's called gaslighting.
Right. And all of a sudden, it's the greatest thing since sliced cheese. So I did that and was able to deflect it. It didn't go away because my wife had a stellar memory.
Okay.
So that kind of thing never sat. It was able to come back and haunt me forever.
Right.
But, you know, it got to a point where I did not know that she was unhappy, and I felt like I was still living the provider role, and in fact, I was doing a whole lot of alienation.
Okay.
Because of what I had done. I had no clue that would leave a lasting scar, but it did.
Yeah, in our efforts to compensate for hiding who we are and not accepting who we are, we can often do some really, really dramatic things, and there's often collateral damage for that. It's not a simple. We don't live in a bubble. You know, our desire to find our comfort, the desire to find ourselves, comes at a cost. Most of the time, it's at our own cost. You know, we lose those that we care about. We lose the ones that we trust and need for support. But in some instances, when you're really trying to cling to this identity, we can externalize that damage, and we can't. And I'm not a therapist. I'm not going to say anything about that. But we can't always. It is something that we carry, and we never get to put it down because it is part of who we are. But at the same time, there are reasons for it. It's not like you did it maliciously. It's not like you had this idea that you were hurting someone you cared about. No, it was just that you were trying very hard to be yourself. So
I'm laughing because Supergirl is reliving moments. But the thing is I am a therapist. And,
so you tell you that then.
Well, are you a Star Trek fan?
I haven't watched every single episode ever, but I know enough. Yes.
So think of the saying, "Physician, heal thyself."
Right.
Okay, so it's real good to say all those great things that a therapist.
But actually doing it is an entirely different.
But let's just say that I'm not good at taking my own advice.
Oh, I completely understand. You see on my post, if you follow my posts and you read what I write, 99% of that is directed at me. And I'm giving myself the advice that I need for that day. I'm talking to myself about something that I'm struggling with. And the fact that it resonates with other people is entirely because I'm not the only one screwing up things around here, So it is absolutely the way things are. But I absolutely understand physician, heal thyself. And it is an old concept, and it is one that we always, I think, as just people in general, struggle with. We're very good at seeing the flaws in others, but addressing the flaws within ourselves are not always so simple.
Well, the thing is that the expectation was that the physician counsel thyself and thine wife. And it's not possible to counsel thy wife when they are really angry.
Yeah, I imagine. So, well, Hannah, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're having a great night at work. Absolutely. I understand.
So, there's that.
Okay. All right. So we have this situation with your wife. So at what point we're working our way to this? I'm like, we're gonna get there eventually. At what point did everything come to a head, and how did it come to it? How did it come to that head? How did it resolve itself?
Well,
or did it?
She basically blew up with me on the porch about a year ago and said, "I'm unhappy, and these are the reasons why." So we'll give you the condensed edition.
Okay.
And heavily censored. Basically, I'm unhappy, and this is the reasons why, and this has been going on forever, and I want a divorce. And I said, okay, I'm not giving you a divorce. And then she said, well, I expect there to be change. Okay, well, what do you expect? And then she gave me a list of things that she wanted to change. So, being the person that likes to fix things,
right.
I decided that I was going to do the list, and that list included, the typical thing like, go off with friends. I mean, her stuff was simple, and I will own this, and I just had this discussion with Supergirl. I will own it because I did it, and I'm guilty of it. I did not like when she went off with other people because she would drink and she wouldn't stop. And so there was an alcohol problem that I thought was there that genuinely wasn't. So I was not trustful of her going off, and I controlled it, or tried to. And then when I figured out I couldn't control it, I just tried to redirect what she wanted to do.
Okay.
And those kind of things built up a history of, I'm not happy. So over the course of years, I did that to myself.
Okay. Again, okay. You know better than anyone as a therapist that relationships are not always easy, and a lot of this mistrust and everything comes from an internal source. So, I mean, I can't, at this point, I'm just going to sit here and listen, and you just tell your story, because usually I like to give advice, because I've always been an advice giver. I'm trying to fix things, and again, heal thyself. But I have no words. So
add into the mix, and I don't know if this was one of your questions, but I went to seminary to be a pastor.
Me too.
And as you're aware, that doesn't jive too well with Christianity. Because many of them want to say that you're going to burn in hell, or it's a sin, or any variation of that. And my argument to all of that, even after attending a university which shall not be named, but it's not hard to figure out, that if God knows everything, then God decides the story before it's written and is the author of the story. And so there's no shock to God. So therefore, because I am like I am, there's no shock to God. God wasn't surprised. He didn't say, ooh, made a mistake with that one.
Were we supposed to flip a switch?
Right, and I say that jokingly, but after going to seminary to do this, and this be something that I was serious about, to have other devout Christians in my family decide to, take a different stance than me, and I'll just leave it at that, because we don't want to do that here.
No, we don't like to get into religious arguments on this show.
Exactly. So, but the stances were different, and the beliefs tended to show their true nature. So, I stepped away from it, because what I believe and what my family believed were two dramatically different courses of life.
Okay. I can't say anything else, because my family did the same thing. They are very, very religious people. I was raised very religious, and I still think of myself as though I am. I just can't agree with the idea that who I am is a sin or some kind of thing against God, when, as you said, I was made this way. I lived my life for as long as I did in the role that I was in, and now it's time for me to be true to who I am on the inside. So, if there is a God, which I'm not stipulating that there is or there is not, and God created everything, and God created me the way I am, then God also knew that at some point it was going to be too much for me to bear, and the alternatives would be to kill myself or to accept myself. And I chose the latter, because killing myself didn't work the first 2 times, and I didn't want to go through that again. So.
Right. Well, my thing was, after dealing with, the PTSD, the marriage problems, the transition in itself is a challenge. On a good day.
Right.
It is more than a challenge on a bad one. And I just think that, with what I've been through, there were people that were saying to me different things that were negative that I took in stride, but there were some that I couldn't escape based on who they were. I wanted to reach out and do whatever I could to get even at, basically. So, because it hurt. Some of the things that were said were lifelong friends, or they were people that I knew, and it was a choice of It was a choice of Supergirl is helping me cook while I talk. So,
Okay. Well, good for her then.
We, you know, we internalize a lot of that stuff. All of us do that are going through transition. But, I guess it's an extra layer for different people. And when I say that, I mean, each person's life circumstance dictates their individual level of drama. Because what I experience is definitely not what you experience, or say, Paula or anybody else. I'm using her in vain. But
thou shalt
insert
not
anybody's name there.
Thou shalt not use Paula's name in vain. Love
That's
Paula.
Right. That's right. But Paula's such a cheery person, and I love it because there are days that if it weren't for Paula, I would probably not get up out of bed and smile.
Oh, goodness.
There is that. So
yeah, she reached out to me this morning, and we were talking about my leaving, and she's like, "Well, if after your last day, if you need to talk about it, you give me a call." And I'm like, "Oh, Paula."
Yeah, Paula is that kind of person.
Yeah.
I just until I found the what I have termed my online support group, because that's what everybody is.
It really is.
I was just, I think every other Facebook post was, "Oh my God, life sucks."
Right.
And, or some variation, some variant of that. And dealing with the PTSD, I would go to sleep with nightmares, wake up with a living nightmare, dealing with my wife and the situation. Not to say that she's a bad person, because I'm not going to judge, but
right.
That situation. Anybody that's going through divorce, there's just an inherited. Everybody goes through a bad spot.
Right. There's at least a moment of bitterness.
Right.
It doesn't matter how amicable the separation. There's going to be bitterness.
Yes. So, needless to say, I'm not on good ground with my wife as far as certain things still make me angry. Certain things that she does, certain things that I do, I'm sure make her angry. The process is not short, and it's not easy. So, marriage itself is not easy. And being a family and marriage counselor, I can totally attest to the fact that marriage is hard work in all forms. And to say otherwise would be a fool's game. But, there's something to be said for the sense of freedom that you find after the fact.
Right.
I have discovered that it's okay to be me, and it's okay to be trans, and it's okay to be a trans veteran. It's okay for all of that. Like, there's just certain things that you just kind of you take for granted, and then life throws you the punch, and you figure out.
Right. So, now, when you've gotten to this point, you've accepted yourself, and you came out. How badly did your family take it?
Well, are we talking about immediate family, or are we talking about extended family? I mean,
let's talk about immediate. We'll talk about immediate and work our way out.
Okay. Well, as far as that, I'm blessed. My sons struggled with it a little bit, but they were accepting. But then again, that's a testament to this generation, and the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Because let's face it, anybody that's older than, say, 40 will have struggled more. Yeah, we're done with that. So, the thing is I don't. I'm glad that both of my boys not only accept me for whatever I do and however I do it, but they also are willing to be open to whatever comes next.
Right.
To give you an example, and I'm gonna maybe put Supergirl on the spot just a little, not really, but they were very accepting of the fact that Supergirl was going to come over and have dinner with me tonight.
Okay.
And so they helped clean up the house and help do things, and were awesome because they care about what happens to me.
Right.
So, and what I care about. So, yes, their mom is important, but I would imagine they would do the same thing for their mom.
Right.
And I'm just blessed by that. Like that's awesome because they support me.
That's what family is supposed to be. I mean, that's what the idea of family, that unconditional acceptance and wanting what's best for each other because you are family. That's what it's supposed to look like. The question is why are we surprised? Why is this like, oh, I'm blessed? No, this is your family. This is what's supposed to happen. I know we are blessed and we are gifted with families that care about us. Not so much me, but but it's just so tragic that we think of it as a blessing as opposed to just what should occur. Okay,
right.
I'm sorry. I'm off my soapbox now. Keep going.
That's okay. So, the thing is, where I'm at in life is a bit of, as Tina likes to put it, enigma wrapped in a mystery. So, I'm not in the typical place that a lot of transgender women find themselves. I am very much a person that likes planning and thought out things, but as a trans woman, that isn't always possible. So I'm in an element that I am uncomfortable in. The lack of hair is one of those things. So, like I said, enjoy. You're getting a treat. But I will say that you are in control of what happens to you to a degree. So you can make the best of your situation, and that's what I've tried to do. I am not always successful. I have days where I do not want to get out of bed. I try very hard to see the positive now where before I didn't. I am in a lot of intensive therapy and counseling with the VA.
Okay.
I would say that is very important for anyone that is wanting to transition.
Absolutely.
Because we have so much to unpack from ourselves, let alone any spouse or any family that are involved. I'm going to be a public service announcement for that at this point. But there's a lot to be said for that.
And there absolutely is. And we're constantly talking about this within our community. Have you talked to your therapist? That's like step one is
right.
Where are you getting your mental health services from? Because
exactly.
You can't, going it alone is not only difficult, but it's dangerous. You're gonna hit a wall at some point where you're going to feel just either dysphoric or completely defeated. And if you don't have that support network built before you get there, you could truly find yourself in danger of self-harm or just really poor choices. And I agree 1001%.
Well, I have had, since I've lived in this house, no issues up until about 2 weeks ago. And I've lived here for 5 years, where I live. And it was brought to me by another neighbor that they had issue with me being transgender. So there's that. I have like
Okay.
that outside situation happening, and the thing is you know, I had like a fearless mentality because you know the Army instills that real well. I jumped out of a perfectly good airplane, um, you know,
Me
and I
too.
actually went to VA. Yeah, and I actually went to the VA clinic, dressed for the first time with no idea what would happen before I had ever been introduced to the mental health people there. Um, but you know, it's one of those things where I have this feeling of being all in, and that's how I handle it. So, you know, I thought, well, you know, if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it, and I was all 100% invested the whole way through.
Right.
But now that there's muscle loss, and now that there's changes and whatnot, I have to be more mindful about environment. And you know, the estrogen does something to your brain where you're a little more aware,
Yes.
maybe too much aware. I don't know. But so I'm not the hard charger that I used to be, I guess is a great word.
Right.
So now I worry more about what happens here at the house and whatnot. Although I have two strapping young sons that would probably do well, you know, now I'm having to think twice about stuff that I do.
Right. And unfortunately, that's a reality that so many of us have to face. And whether it's related to our transition or just the fact that, you know, with estrogen, we are losing that muscle strength, you know, and that that testosterone fueled aggression almost. It is a loss, and we have to compensate. And a lot of it comes down to compensating because we're women. And you are hyper aware of the dangers that you are in. And as a transgender woman, it is just that much more dangerous. So, okay, we're getting a little bit of signal loss, but we're coming up on the end here.
Okay.
Well,
and I'm actually, if you don't mind, I'm gonna cut it a little short. So
okay, that works perfectly. So, if you would just give us one piece of advice that you would give to your trans siblings, and then we'll go from there.
Be the change you want to be, and positivity is everything. If you want to be positive and have positive in your life, you have to surround yourself with it and be positive for yourself. If you wake up and you're negative about your day is going to be negative.
That's excellent advice. Christin, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy your meal. Enjoy your time with Supergirl. I always love it when we get superheroes on our show. It's always a lot of fun. I'm going to finish wrapping up after we say goodbye. All right.
All righty. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
All right, folks. You know, life gets not in the way, but we always have our opportunities, you know, and we have to take them while they may. And Christin is doing just that. So for me, I just wanted to say a few words before we do wrap up. We've got about 6 more minutes. So those of you jumping off, you know, before I even get to talk, by all means, thanks. We heard a lot about accepting ourselves today. We heard a lot about our community. If you check out Samantha's post, if you check out my post, Jen's post, we all talk about the same kind of thing. Now, to be fair, Sam has some influence on others. So, you know, we take our cues from each other. But the reality is that we are not alone. As alone as you may feel, as by yourself as you may feel on occasion, where you never see another transgender face that you are aware of, you don't have those in-person relationships with other trans folks, we are here for you. We are here for each other, and we always have to remember that You can never give up hope, because hope is often the only thing we have to cling to. And so when you're left alone and you feel alone, you need to remember that there are people there who feel just as alone and could just really use someone saying hello. So on your worst days when you're struggling, reach out to someone else. Reach out to someone who also may be struggling, and together you could be the answer for one another. You can find that strength that you don't have in yourself and be the strength for someone else. Our community is strong as long as we are strong for each other. There's nothing that we cannot do together. The trans community and our allies, the wonderful people who watch on the show every time I do it, we have a passion for kindness and acceptance that those who would tear us apart do not have. And as long as they lack the love and kindness that we maintain, they can never defeat us. They can never tear us apart, and they can never remove our voices from the public domain, because our voices are strong. Our voices are proud. Our voices are filled with love and hope and acceptance, and those will win every time in the face of hate and suspicion. People fear what they do not understand, and it is our mission, it is our duty to ourselves to be ourselves. Now, sometimes that may be just little things of being true to yourself when you can in private for safety reasons. But if you have the opportunity to stand in front of a group of people and explain why you are just a person, why you are just someone like everyone else, I beg that you take it. I beg that you stand up and tell your story, because it is our narrative, it is our storytelling that draws people in. From the very most ancient times, we have been a storytelling people. We've gathered around fires, we've gathered around hearths and homes, and we have told our stories. We have recorded our stories in books ancient as time. And those stories have shaped who we've become. We are a storytelling people, and we listen to stories. That is why books sell so well. It is why movies do so well, because we want to be moved by the narration of others. We want to feel that connection to other people, because it is lost so often in such a busy and fast-paced world. Connect to others, even if it's virtual, even if it's only here on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat or whatever other media platform you connect with. Connect to your brothers and sisters and other trans siblings. Connect to our allies. And together in one beautiful chorus of voice, we can change our world. We can change the reality that we see day in and day out. The hate, those suspicious looks of others, the complete disregard for our personhood that we see on a daily basis now. If we join in one song and accept one another, support one another, we can change the entire world. So, as always, remember, love yourself, love others, but no matter what happens, remember, your story is just as important as anyone else's, and you have every right to live it. You have every right to tell it. And your story can be something that is amazing and inspires those that come after. Be good to yourselves, folks. We'll see you next time. Have a good night.